Dragon Age is a series of role-playing games that has been with me ever since I first played the second entry in 2012. It is a series that I hold very dear to my heart, and it is a large reason of why I love games with multiple entries because there's just more to love. Dragon Age is also one of those rare franchises where each game adds something new to the table and it still feels largely consistent while still retaining a lot of the core things that make the series what it is, by still keeping that identity across all three games. It's not a bad thing to experiment and branch out, but I've always appreciated Dragon Age's willingness to be like, you know what, we have something here, let's just keep it, but like let's keep introducing new things to still bring in new people. You know, I've always liked that about Dragon Age. It's still like each game feels new and different, but it still feels familiar. It still has that classic BioWare formula and charm. Dragon Age is dark fantasy mixed with elements of D&D and power fantasy, and it's largely defined by how you create your character and the choices that can be imported across all three games, and the consequences of those choices and seeing how they pan out either in that same game or across the other two games. Dragon Age itself is still pretty linear compared to other RPGs, but it still does a very good job at introducing that choices and consequence system, especially in Origins. But it is also really apparent when you import your save in Dragon Age 2. There's like 20 or 25 different outcomes that can be accounted for that are all still kind of relevant to the main story and the world that you're in. Like it's still pretty cool. And an Inquisition is they like there's a lot of choices that still carry over, but like it's mostly just like references like, oh, like here's this cameo, and it's still pretty cool. So this is going to be kind of similar to my Final Fantasy VII video. I just want to yap about something that I love. So yeah, and then like obviously offer like the backstory, like when I was 8 years old, like that kind of stuff. So I enjoy these videos because I don't need to write a script for talking about stuff I love. I just do it, and it just feels more natural that way. So, yeah. This journey started in, like I said, in 2012 when I first played Dragon Age 2 for the very first time. It was on the PS3 and it was good. I was young, so I was just starting 6th grade. And I still had not been fully exposed to RPGs. Like I've played Oblivion at that point, I played Morrowind, and I played Skyrim. So those are like the three big Bethesda RPGs. But like outside of that, I didn't really have much experience with RPGs besides that and Final Fantasy 9 and 10 at that time. So still not really the full potential of my RPG um, connoisseurship. That's not the right word, but it's okay. Um, yeah, so I was still pretty like limited in my experience with RPGs. And Dragon Age, I actually forget how we got Dragon Age 2. I think that someone lent it to us and they never got it back. Um, yeah, so Dragon Age 2, I actually do remember my first playthrough of it. It was a rogue default male hawk, and I romanced Meryl for some reason. I remember the play that it was that playthrough where like I didn't find Isabella, I didn't recruit her somehow. I don't know how I missed her when she's in like one of the most obvious places to find her. So that's kind of funny. It wasn't a good playthrough, basically. But like it was still interesting and I enjoyed the character dynamics and the banter and I loved the choices and consequences and I liked the fact that there was like a day and night cycle in Kirkwall and I liked there was like a codex and the monsters, and I actually loved the combat back then. I don't love it now. I actually think it's the worst in the series as of right now, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, and I remember Really enjoying Dragon Age 2. Then we cut to 2013. It was the summer of 2013, and we were able, me and my mom, we were able to get Dragon Age Origins from GameStop back when GameStop was fun to get games from. I also got Saints Row 2 on the Xbox 360, so that was like my 360 game, and then we got Dragon Age Origins for the PS3. And I remember thinking, holy crap, like this game is so different because like you could choose your backstory, you could, and and I loved the fact that you could see that backstory play out and how it would affect the story going forward. And I loved that. That was one of my favorite things to do in Skyrim. I wanted to push the boundaries and see just how much role playing you could do based on something that you could pick in character creation. So I had like 12 characters made in Skyrim on the PS3, and like they were all different races, and I just like wanted to see how different things would be. Like obviously it's Skyrim, so like it's like not much. Like basically if you're a dark elf, you'll be remarked quite colorfully in Windhelm, and if you're not a dark elf, well, you're just a normal person. So that was like basically the only difference. Um, I'm half joking. Anyways, so Origins introduced a whole new level of complexity for my young little mind back then, because I was just like so interested in seeing again like how far you could go with this. Now, Origins, the version that we had, it didn't come with all the DLC. It was actually also missing the Shale DLC, but we eventually, I think it was actually for free. So like we had to like download it off the PlayStation Store, the PlayStation 3 store, which that's God, it's so interesting to think about back like now. Good times, very good times. Anyways, so yeah, Origins. My mom played it first. She did a city elf background, and I remember watching that intro. I was like, oh my God, like this is so different. Like it looks really good. Even though Dragon Age 2 came after, like I was watching Origins and I was just like, wow, this game looks really good. Like the models look good and the voice acting is great. The soundtrack's pretty cool. The introduction is pretty awesome. Like my young mind couldn't comprehend how inferior Dragon Age 2 looked to Origins, and that was me back then saying that. It's just kind of interesting. And I loved the character creator too. But anyways, yeah, I'm just like then I made my character later that night, and of course I chose the basic bitch, human noble male background with an awful nose because I was horrible at making characters back then. I still kind of am, but I take a little bit more pride in doing it because I'm a little bit more of a perfectionist than I was back then. And again, like I was just like so shocked. I was like, oh my God, like we're betrayed, and oh my God, like we have to escape. It's just, my young brain couldn't comprehend that. Like, I enjoyed the six different origins, and I enjoyed seeing how all of them still led you to the same conclusion. Like, okay, like we have to leave what we're doing and go to the Grey Wardens. I just loved the different reasons that you would have to leave and go to the Grey Wardens. Like, I just enjoyed that too. So, like, it still felt linear, but it still also had a little bit of role play, like a little bit of the role play options, which I enjoyed. I actually don't remember a lot about my first playthrough of Origins, oddly enough. I actually don't I don't think I did a full playthrough of it until the next year, if I'm remembering my timeline correctly. I do remember later that summer, it was before school started. My mom, she actually got to the end of her playthrough, and I remember it was funny, like we were just in the living room. I was watching her play, and like we were just like waiting with like with I can't think of the word. We were just watching, and then there's the archdemon. It's like, oh shit, this is it. Like this is the last boss. And I remember it perfectly. My mom did not like Morrigan, so she was dead set on sacrificing her character. Like that was the road that she was going to go on. And I was just like, okay. So she's doing the fight, and good old Dragon Age Origins was not the most stable version on the PS3, and the Archdemon actually glitched to the point where it was stuck. So my mom was a rogue. She had max lockpicking, and she was able to redirect one of the ballistas that's on the battlefield towards the Archdemon, and she just spammed that, and it worked. Like it took like 2 or 3 minutes, but that's how she cheesed the final battle, and fair enough. It was just really funny, and I'm just watching that final epic scene, and then obviously the sadness comes from the epilogue when you realize, oh no, like she didn't make it through that. So it was a somber note to end on, but it was still beautiful. And I know and that to this day, that's the only playthrough my mom did of Origins. It's fun to think back on that. And yeah, then 2013 through 14 was a pretty big time period for us because we ended up moving. And one of the friends that I made at one of the schools that I went to, he lent me the Mass Effect trilogy. It was like in a bundle, like a like one of those cases that had like all three games in it. Such a good dude, because knowing me, I wouldn't have lent anybody that. I wouldn't have trusted anyone with it. So the fact that he was willing to do that for me, like someone he barely knew, good on him. So I kind of fell into Mass Effect for a bit. Um, but I don't remember too much of that playthrough. The only thing I remember from that playthrough, it was on the 360. I romanced Liara through all three games, and I shot the kid at the end, and I got the refusal ending. So I don't consider that playthrough quote canon in my quote lore. Like I just kind of brush that off, and I would rather remember my Mass Effect time with the Legendary Edition. So that's all going to be in another video. For now, I'm talking about Dragon Age. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because 2013 and 2014, I was playing a lot of games, like especially 2014, like going into the summer, like I was playing on the 360 a lot. I had a really good collection on the 360 that I was really proud of. But it mostly revolved around like Saints Row 2 and Sleeping Dogs and Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Like I had a really good collection, but I kind of stuck to those games for a while. And it wasn't until a certain point during that year where I replayed Dragon Age 2, and then I was like, oh, like yeah, this is actually a really good game. And I replayed Origins again because that's the correct way to play Dragon Age. You got to play the second game first for some reason. And it was during that time that I learned that Inquisition was coming out, the third game, and it was coming out later that year in 2014. Now, we didn't have a consistent access to internet. Like, we used phone data to look up everything. Like, we didn't have a hotspot. We didn't have anything like that. Like, we had cable, but no internet. So, we did not use our data to like look up stuff about Inquisition that much. Like we learned the name of the game, we learned that Cassandra was going to be a returning character from Dragon Age 2 and she would be a party member, but like that was pretty much it. So I remember I remember these like I my memory is getting worse, but I do remember moments like these fondly, like where we're just like speculating, like okay, like where are we gonna go? Like are we gonna go to Deventer? Are we gonna go to Parvalon? Like where's the story gonna go? Like are we gonna see Sandal again? Like and it was just I mean to put it simply, it was just a really fun time period. Like our life was still pretty shitty, but just having that escapism was just wonderful. It's a common thread that all of my favorite games have. It's just that escapism that just really make it all worth it to me. And it just reminds me why video games are my most consistent form of escapism because it's just the easiest thing for me to enjoy. So, anyways, fast forward a little bit to 2014, and the PS4 had been out for a year at this point. Crazy time to be alive. And we had actually rented a PS4 about a month before Inquisition came out. And I remember the PS4 that I had rented, it came with a free game, MLB The Show 2013 or whatever it was. It was a baseball game. It was not good. I mean, I only played it just because it came with it came with the console. So it also came with Call of Duty Ghosts. I enjoyed that a little bit more, but it was still not good. So not off to a good start with the PS4 collection. But then we were able to get Dragon Age Inquisition. We actually bought it. I still have the disc. I still have it. That, wow, that is crazy for me to think about actually. We played it so much to the point where the disc that I have now is actually cracked. Same thing with my Witcher 3 copy. I had to buy another copy. It's crazy, man. Good times. So yeah, I remember like we were driving on the way home, and I was looking at I was looking at the game art, the cover, the little booklet that didn't have any useful information, because why would they these days? And I remember just like, okay, so this is like our main cast of characters. Like they look so cool. It didn't click to me that Varric was on the back of the game. So like I just didn't notice that. So anyways, we get home and my mom we actually go in separate rooms. So I went in her room to boot up the 360 and I was continuing still to this day my only evil playthrough of Dragon Age Origins. Like it was mostly evil. It was actually cool. I modeled my character after Letho from The Witcher 2, and I came up with like this really cool backstory. Like he was basically like a demon, and it was neat. It was neat for my little brain to come up with something like dark on his own with sounds really weird when I say it like that. But yeah, like I had just discovered The Witcher 2 of 2 or 3 months prior to this, so I was starting to get into that a little bit, but more on that later. So I was doing Origins, and I remember it was right before I go into the Deep Roads to face the Broodmother, and I remember this is another fond memory. I remember hearing my mom. She made like a fangirl like screech like oh my god. So I ran into the other room to see what the commotion was about. It was after she made her character and she's like moving through the prologue, and there's Varric, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's Varric! Look at those chest hairs!" And I remember just like standing there for a second, and I was just looking at the game, and I was just like, "Holy crap, this game looks gorgeous." Still does. 10 years later, it still looks really good. Like it did not age at all. Really, the only thing that aged were the eyebrows, in my opinion. That was pretty much it. Oh, good times. But yeah, it's like I remember just like watching her play for a second, and I was just like, "Oh my God, like I need to make a character tonight before school tomorrow." And she was like, "Oh yeah, 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 you can." So, I go back in my room and I go back to Origins, and I was just looking at the graphics. I was just like, "Oh my God, like this is such a downgrade." Like it's so funny. Like I've never cared about graphics, but like when they're good, I love to praise them, you know. So I remember later that night I made my character and I remember like fiddling around with some options, but it was mostly just the default like male head like with the voice. Like I don't even think I changed his name because I was just like, all right, I just want to like get into the game because I know I'm not gonna be able to stay up too late because it's a school day. So I remember getting through the prologue at least, and that was like a good stopping point. And I unfortunately I don't remember a lot more about the first playthrough of Inquisition that I did, which is really unfortunate. The only thing I remember is that again, we didn't have we didn't have an internet source. So we couldn't even get the free DLC, the Black Emporium, which allows you to change your appearance and gives you access to a lot of goody stuff like schematics and weapons and all that. So we couldn't even do that, which is a shame, but it wasn't really a requirement. So a few weeks pass. We're both making really good progress on our respective playthroughs, and then my mom again finishes the game first. She learned how to record clips on the PlayStation, and like then she's just like, "Hey, so I finished Inquisition and I want your opinion on the ending." And I'm just like, "Okay." So we go in the living room. She boots up the PlayStation. She logs in. She shows me the ending, and we're both just sitting there like, "What?" Like it was just like, "What?" And again, like we just spent like the next 20 minutes like speculating, like, "Oh my God, like what does this mean? Like where's the story gonna go? Is this the last game?" Like they can't leave us on that. It wasn't like Mass Effect 3's ending where it was just frustration. Like it was like genuine, like, oh my God, like where's the story gonna go from here? Like it's so interesting. Like they just like it's a bombshell. It comes out of nowhere, or so it seems. Once you do a second playthrough, then it's like, oh, that is really clever foreshadowing, BioWare. Good job. So yeah, and then shortly after I finished my respective playthrough, got the same ending, and I was just like, okay. And I do remember this is a bad memory, unfortunately. I do remember coming home from school, and I remember we actually had to stop renting the PS4 to save money that month. And so, that sucked. My mom was at least able to like get all the data like cleared off, but that unfortunately meant losing our playthroughs, our clips, and yeah, that really sucked. I wasn't too upset about it. I actually handled it pretty well. Um, like I didn't mind going back to the PS3 and 360 for a while, and that gave me more time to focus on other stuff like school, maintaining that 4.0. Good times. And then it was February 2015 where I saw the Sword of Destiny trailer for The Witcher 3. Again, this will be a separate video, but when I saw the Witcher 3 trailer, I was just like, holy moly. If I remember correctly, it was actually during a Witcher 2 playthrough because I started a second one, like as I was watching that, like as I was doing that. I can't English. I remember doing a second playthrough not too long after uh, the PS4 went away. So then I saw that trailer, and I'm just like, oh my God, oh no, it's on PS4 only. So then I had a new goal that for the rest of the school year, I would maintain my GPA, get all A's, and that would be my reward, my own PS4. And I did. And that was my reward, June 1st, 2015. Genuinely one of the best days of my life, a day that I will never forget. Took off school. I think, yeah, I took off school that day, and we got up super early, went to Walmart, got the PS4, had to go to a doctor's appointment. So our like the new PlayStation is just sitting out there. And I'm just like, oh my God, no one better steal it. Like I will be pissed. But I also had my copy of The Witcher 3, and I was just waiting. Like, okay, let's get this doctor's appointment over with. So then I fall into a Witcher 3 rabbit hole for about 2 or 3 months, give or take. And After that, after that kind of passed, then I remembered, oh wait, I have Dragon Age Inquisition on disc. That's a fun game to go back to. Why not? And it was also during this time that we were able to finally get an internet source. It wasn't great. It had a download limit of like only 25 gigs a month, but like it's like okay. So that sucked. But yeah, then sorry, it's just like flooding, like the nostalgia. It's just flooding back. Play Inquisition again. And it was during that time that I realized, oh wait, they released 3 DLCs for it. And Trespasser was the one that interested me the most because it was the one that offered an actual ending to the game, and the trailer was hype. Like it was hype watching that trailer. So I bought that, and I can't remember if it was I want to say it was like during. I want to say it was during September, I think. I think that's when I played it. I actually don't remember. Because I remember it was after my second playthrough when I was able to use that character going into it. I think yeah, it was a female character that I made. It was a female rogue two-handed um Iron Bull romance, I believe. And yeah, we played Trespasser for the very first time, and my mom, she was like with me the whole time. Um, and man, it was rough. It was a rough uh, few hours that day. It was a month, I believe it was like a month. It was after, let's just say that. It was after an already stressful third playthrough of Witcher 3, which was my evil playthrough. And if you ever wonder why I don't do evil playthroughs in video games, you can thank that playthrough because that was the playthrough that made me realize, yeah, this is not worth it. I get too emotionally invested in video games, especially with characters that I love, and yeah, I can't be treating them bad. Like, it's not worth it. So I had that, and then here's this, which is a conclusion and a proper conclusion to Inquisition while still setting up future events. And it felt a lot more final. Like it felt like, okay, like now this is it. Like this is basically what the Citadel DLC is for Mass Effect 3, except that's more like headcanon, I guess. You know, it's more just like, well, you know, we got all these talented voice actors. Let's just have a little bit of fun. Whereas this felt a lot more final. Like it's like okay, like this is the last time you'll see a lot of these characters. And it was at that point that we realized like, oh, like we're not going to get a new game for a while now. And that sucked. It really sucked. It was still good, but you know, late 2016 and I was able to get my very first gaming PC. I still have it. It's shit. There's no other way around it. It is not a good PC. Windows 7 and it's not like you have to have it connected to a router for it to get internet, which isn't bad, but like the system itself doesn't really run that well. I'm sure I'll tinker with it one of these days and see if maybe I can get it to work properly again. That's not important though. I remember it was during the Christmas sale of 2016, I believe, or wait, wait, no, I'm sorry. It was 2017, my bad. It was during this Christmas sale, and of course, like you have all the big name games of that year that are on sale, and one of those games was Dragon Age Origins, and I'm just like, you know what? I've never played it on the PC, obviously, so I'm like, let's buy it and see how it is, and I automatically loved it so much more on the PC. Like it was a game that I recognized, like, oh yeah, this is a game that's made for PC. But of course, this was during my 2017 to almost mid 2019 Overwatch phase where everything I touched that wasn't Overwatch was just filler, unfortunately. So I never actually dedicated a lot of time to Dragon Age until 2019, like late summer of 2019 when I decided to do a playthrough of Inquisition. That was actually pretty good. Like it was another female character, but I never finished it unfortunately. And then I can't tell you when it fully happened, but it was sometime in 2020 where like the wheels started turning like okay, let's play Dragon Age again. And I did a good Origins playthrough. I did a full Dragon Age 2 playthrough, and I felt really good about it. I still didn't play the DLCs, and I was able to start Inquisition, but I never finished it. I actually didn't get that far at all, which was weird. And then I kind of just floated around and played other stuff through 2020, like a lot of other people did. And then 2021 was the year of Mass Effect, and I fell into a Mass Effect rabbit hole, which was good, a lot better than Overwatch. As a matter of fact, Mass Effect was one of those games that actually led me to fully quit Overwatch. Another game I can thank for that is Red Dead Redemption 2, Witcher 3, yeah, just to name a few. So I will always be grateful to Mass Effect for that, for making me fall in love with single player games again. And it was after, I believe, the third Mass Effect playthrough, which to this day I would still consider one of my best playthroughs. It was the one where I romanced Tali for the first time. I think, or actually no, I think it was after the fourth playthrough where I decided let's go back through Dragon Age. And this time with Origins, I did a full playthrough while also doing the DLCs for the very first time. I started Awakening, didn't actually finish it though, so it's kind of false advertising, I will admit. Played Dragon Age 2 again, it was good, and then Inquisition was actually really good. This was the first time that I played all three games, and it was good. For some reason, for Dragon Age 2, I skipped the DLCs. I just played the main story, so that was kind of stupid on my part. But Inquisition, I also kind of just played the main story and stuck to Trespasser. I actually think it was because I didn't own all the DLCs for Inquisition. I just played the main story and Trespasser, so. And then in the year of our Lord 2023, last year, it was after my last Mass Effect playthrough, still to this day, I did a full trilogy playthrough of Dragon Age, this time doing all the DLC for each game as well. Obviously, starting with Origins. The Origins playthrough that I did was really good. Honestly, my best playthrough. Like, I discovered so many new things. I pretty much got the best possible outcome for each quest, and I did the most out of any other playthrough. Like, I did so many pointless side quests. And it's at that point that I realized that BioWare outside of character missions are not really the best at doing side quests for RPGs. It's just unfortunate. We all have our weaknesses and we all have our strengths. BioWare's is just not good at side quest design, in my opinion. Just in my opinion. It's worse in Dragon Age 2. Actually, no, that's not. That's actually a lie. Dragon Age 2 has some really good side quests, but then there's like the occasional, like, oh, you dropped this here, it's in your pocket. Those quests. You know the ones I'm talking about. Um, so yeah, did all like the main story stuff for Origins, and then I finally did a full playthrough of Awakening, and I loved it. I loved Dragon Age Awakening. I loved the expansion after the main story, and you got to see more brood mothers, more darkspawn, the talking darkspawn, the darkspawn children. Like I loved that. That was awesome. And I actually really enjoyed the cast of characters as well. And it was fun seeing Ogren again and seeing Anders before he was crazy. Like it was cool. It was interesting. Um, I also loved the expansion on the specializations. I loved the new skills. Like it was more of what I wanted. It's more of what I loved. It was fun. Good stuff. I even liked the fade section because it didn't really take too long to get through. So then I played what was it? It was a Witch Hunt? Yes, Witch Hunt. And I loved Witch Hunt. Like I loved that. It was short, sweet, simple, to the point, and it was actually that DLC that made me really appreciate Morrigan more as a character. Like her romance was also really good, but like that kind of sealed the deal. Like I was like, you know what? I actually really like Morrigan. She's a good romance. She's a really good one. And then naturally I had to play the other DLC. Didn't I mean those are really the only two in my opinion that are worth playing. Like Golems of Angarak is trash. Like it's just not worth it. I'm just being honest. It's not worth doing. Then came Dragon Age 2, also kind of my best playthrough of that game. It was a 60-hour playthrough, which I'm actually still shocked I was able to get that much out of Dragon Age 2, especially because of how short it is. But I did everything that I wanted to do. I just didn't like playing through it because I picked a warrior class. I don't think warrior is that fun in Dragon Age 2, if I'm being honest. And I also did an Isabella romance, which I don't like Isabella that much. I mean, she's better than Meryl, but like, it's not, I don't know. I just don't like romancing her. Everything else was fine though. I enjoyed the Mark of the Assassin DLC a lot. It was hilarious. Seeing Charlie as a character was fun, or Felicia Day. Charlie for Supernatural fans. And then it was the Legacy DLC, I think it was, where you see Corypheus. I was like, I remember being so interested in playing through that, but I never did for myself until that time. And I was like, okay, let me just see what the hubbub was about. And I remember loving it. Like, I remember loving getting to that final reveal of Corypheus, and then you fight him. And like it's actually a tough fight because like I didn't know what to expect and I did it all in one try, but it was not easy. So much to the point where I actually have this memory of Corypheus. He has like this like ice wall thing where like it blocks your path and you have to basically navigate through it like a maze, and obviously if you touch it, you get damaged. And everyone was down except my character. And I remember just running around and I was just like, "Oh my God, like how am I going to do this?" And it was just it was awesome, to put it simply. Like I loved it. And then the game ended and I'm just like, "Okay, now let's go to Inquisition." I took a month off because I didn't want to get fully burnt out of Dragon Age before I reached the third game, which was a smart idea. And then I played Inquisition, and it was, to put it simply, it was just a lot of fun. It was just, again, more of what I wanted to do, and it was just great. Importing my world state through Dragon Age Keep was great. Seeing all those choices come together and all the references, and it was also the first playthrough of Inquisition where I fully modded it, and it was fun. Like, I didn't cheat or do anything stupid like that. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Cheating in a single player game isn't stupid, but you know what I mean. Um, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. Did a Cassandra romance, which is what I did on my first playthrough, so that was like kind of a nice callback to 2014. Like, oh, I haven't done this romance in so many years. It's basically brand new. Woohoo! You know, and this was also the first Inquisition playthrough that I decided to do all the DLC. I did the Descent at first, and I didn't like it that much, if I'm being honest. Like, I was really expecting more from it, especially because like you were fighting the Darkspawn for a good portion of it, but like it just wasn't really on that level for me. Like I appreciate the lore, like I appreciate the addition of dwarf lore because dwarves really do not get a lot of love in Dragon Age. They really don't. So anything that adds more to them, that's cool. But like I just remember playing through it and I was just like, when is this gonna get good? Like it was fine. It just wasn't really anything I would want to replay anytime soon. I think by that point I was just getting a little burnt out, but you know, it was still fun. Then the Jaws of Hakon, or Hacken, whatever you want to call it, DLC, I started it, but for some reason my PC did not like it to the point where it constantly crashed, even when I was just trying to walk around and admire the beautiful scenery. So I actually had to skip that DLC, which sucked, but honestly, again, by that point, I was just like, okay, you know what? It's fine. And then I start Trespasser. I remember it was like 6:30 that night, and I was able to finish it by 11:30. Did everything, didn't speed run anything. I got through it. Main party was Dorian, Iron Bull, and Varric, my three amigos through the whole game, pretty much. And it was rough, man. It was rough. Very, very rough. Seeing that final conversation with Solus for the first time in a really long time, it was good. It was great actually. Like it was one of the best moments in the whole series, and the music, the scenery, and then of course you get the controversial final choice, like disbanding the Inquisition or keeping them around, you know. But then, then it hit me when you see like right before that credit slideshow, like where it shows like where your companions are and what they're doing after the events. It's like you see that final shot of like the party members and you start seeing them walk away and then your romance comes back with you and just stands by you. It was at that moment that it clicked like, oh, like this is it. Like this game is over now. And oh man, it got me. And it was just crazy because a few months earlier at that time, that's when I finished Mass Effect 3. And the way that I modded Mass Effect 3, it was like it had the happy ending mod, and then it goes straight into the Citadel DLC. So the Citadel DLC was the final moment of Mass Effect 3 for me, and I think that's fitting. So we had that, which was like happy depression, and then Inquisition's Trespasser ending, which was like just depression. It's just like that sounds so horrible out of context, but you know if you played through both games, like you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, and then we fast forward to the end of 2023 and we get our first proper news about Dragon Age Dreadwolf, as it was called back then. And then they say, oh, hey, here's the 60-second trailer. We're gonna tell you more in June. So we literally get nothing for 6 months, and then I don't remember when exactly, but then we get the now infamous news that, for starters, Dragon Age Dreadwolf is now called Dragon Age The Veilguard, and then we get that first launch trailer where it shows all the companions, and I did not like it, as a lot of other people didn't like it. I still don't like it, even knowing what I know now. I think that was such a misleading trailer. But then, thankfully, we get the gameplay reveal trailer, and that was much better. Much, much better. It's like the Dragon Age fandom, it goes through this stage of yes, news, and then it goes, oh, news. That's not good news though. And then it just keeps repeating itself. And it's been doing that for like the months leading up to Veilguard's release. And I'm not gonna go like all into it because I haven't played the game yet, so I don't know. I'm just talking as a fan who has to wait like a lot of other people. But I will say, like, when I saw the reveal trailer, like the release date trailer, when I saw that shit say it was gonna be October 31st, I lost my mind. Me and my mom were both watching it, and we were like jumping up and down in excitement like kids on the playground. I was just like, okay, I know, like now we have to wait till Halloween. Like this is the first genuine time in so many years that I've actually been excited about Halloween, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it's Halloween. And here we are. At the time of recording, it is 9:52 p.m. on October 30th, 2024, and Veilguard is set to release tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon, and still feels surreal, man. Really does. And yeah, that's pretty much the backstory of my experience with Dragon Age. I've just always loved this series. There has never been a point where I've played Dragon Age and I felt disappointed or like I'm just forcing myself to play it. Really, the closest I feel to that is the potential of Dragon Age 2 and how much more it could have been if BioWare simply had more time to expand more upon it. And also, like, like when you play Origins a lot and then you start going through the games and you keep seeing things that are just taken out and disappeared. like never to return again, presumably. That kind of sucks. But like as far as anything that would like annoy me or any anything like that, like Dragon Age has just always been a consistently enjoyable series with memorable characters, moments, and like it's just something that I've always loved. And I feel like even with Veilguard's release, it's still something that I'm going to continue to love because newsflash, I don't care about the quote controversy that is surrounding Veilguard. And that's the last thing I'll say about it. I'm just excited for tomorrow. I really, really am. It's like 14 more hours to go. And yeah, I've just always loved this series. It's always going to hold a special place in my heart. And it's just always fun to think back of those memories, like first playing each game for myself and those memories that I have with my mom as well, because she was the one that introduced me to it. And she was also the one that introduced me to Elder Scrolls and Final Fantasy. I introduced her to Witcher, fair enough. So, it's not a completely one-sided, gamer like mother and son thing. So, and that'll be a separate video, like where I talk about Witcher. That'll be very interesting to go through again. But Dragon Age, there's a little bit more history because, like in my Final Fantasy video, I mentioned that I started with the series with Final Fantasy IX, and that was when I had the PS2, and it was during 2010. So Dragon Age 2, it was 2012 when I first played it. So like this was still when I was a kid. Like I was barely in middle school when I played Dragon Age 2 for the very first time. And then Witcher 3 I played near the end of my 8th grade year in 2015, like when it first came out. It's just crazy. And Inquisition, it's crazy that I was just starting 8th grade pretty much when it came out, and now here I am all these years later, 23 years old, and uh, you know, wish some things would have turned out differently, but it is what it is. Life is just life, but I think ultimately I am in a good place right now, and I'm still obviously grateful for everything. And I'm especially grateful that Dragon Age is a series that has been with me for this long, and it's going to continue to be with me for probably a little bit longer too. So, yeah. And that's pretty much the end of the video. I could keep talking, but I actually feel myself getting a little tired, and I still have to upload this, so it's gonna take me a second. If you actually listened to all this, I greatly appreciate it. And like I said, I will probably have a Witcher version of this video, and definitely a Mass Effect one at some point. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that this offered some insight into the admin behind the channel. I'm so bad at like having a consistent post schedule, and I'm definitely bad at posting worthwhile videos that are actually creative and interesting besides just game clips from for reels. We'll see. Maybe after my first playthrough of Veilguard, I will make a spoiler-free review for it. Maybe, maybe. We'll see. Because I'm sure I'll have some thoughts. But until then, that's all for now, and I should go. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that is.